Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. I hope that the sun is shining where you are. I'm here today to continue the conversation about thyroid. The other day, I was here talking about why thyroid imbalances occur. And I think this is a really important question. It's one that very rarely gets asked. When someone is diagnosed with a thyroid issue, it's very rare that there's any investigation as to why they have a thyroid investigation, as to why they have a thyroid issue. And in fact, it never happens. It literally never happens. If you go to your doctor and you get told you've got a thyroid issue, it's here's some pills, bye bye, and that's it. But so important to dig down into the why if you want to prevent the problem from getting worse and start taking steps to improve your thyroid function, which is so important if you want to actually see better weight loss results and feel better overall. So that's what I was talking about the other day, and I highly recommend that you check that out. I'll drop the link in the comments so that you can have a look at that. But today we're getting down into the actual nitty-gritty of what on earth to do if you do have a thyroid issue, or if you suspect that you have a thyroid issue. And if you don't know, if you've got no idea and you don't know where to go with that, these are still tips that are going to help, because everything that I recommend here, they're things that are good for you anyway. They're things that you would do for many issues that come up. Some of the things are much more specific to thyroid, but some of the things are specific to imbalances in general. So it's a pretty good foundation, whether you have a thyroid issue or not. And that is particularly true to the first tip, which is to reduce inflammation. So inflammation it's caused by your immune system, and it's basically where your immune system sends blood and nutrients to an area of your body to elicit a healing response. However, when it goes on for too long, or it's too much of a response, it can actually cause inflammation, and that can become chronic, where it goes on and on and on. And inflammation can be obvious. It can be, if it's on your skin, then we're talking about red, swollen, things like eczema, things like acne, hives. They're all quite inflammatory responses caused in part by your immune system. And some inflammation, a lot of inflammation, is not visible in that way. If it's not on your skin, then it's probably not visible, but can be, still somewhat detectable. If you've got arthritis, joint pain, then that joint pain is probably coming from some sort of inflammation. So when it comes to your thyroid, if that's inflamed, or if there is inflammation that is affecting your thyroid, that's not quite so obvious. You're not necessarily going to have any sort of inflammation in your thyroid. So difficult to know, but inflammation underpins pretty much every imbalance, every condition that there is. So taking steps to reduce inflammation and address sources of inflammation can only be a good thing. It's only going to be helpful. And there are many, many things that you can do to help to reduce inflammation. Now, keeping it specific to the thyroid, some of the biggest triggers of inflammation can be gluten and dairy. The reason why these can cause inflammation for your thyroid is because your immune system, that they're very likely to trigger your immune system. And as I was saying the other day, some thyroid issues are caused by an immune response that attacks and suppresses your thyroid function. So if you know that you have an autoimmune thyroid issue like Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, then very often eating gluten-free and dairy-free is a good place to start. It's definitely not the whole solution. It's kind of like a symptom management approach, in that it helps to take away the inflammation. And for some people, it is enough. But in most cases, if you've got that sensitivity to gluten and dairy, then there's probably going to be some gut issues going on as well. So there's going to need to be some attention on your gut to help heal that, so that your thyroid can heal as well. But certainly for many people, avoiding gluten and or dairy can help to improve thyroid function. And these are just the common kind of intolerances, if you like, but things like eggs can be an issue, and in theory anything that you're sensitive to could cause a thyroid issue. So that's a whole another topic. There are videos in the Facebook group where we talk about gut and intolerance, and kind of the issues of intolerance testing, and how there's more to it than just intolerances. I won't get into it now, but it will be something that I'll be going over again in the not too distant future. But a good place to start is avoiding those common triggers. And I won't go into it too much because it'll be a very long video. But when it comes to gluten, we want to make sure that we're not just swapping out bread for gluten-free bread, pasta for gluten-free pasta, cake for gluten-free cake, because all of those free from products that you see in the free from aisle in the supermarket, they're very processed. And when you compare the ingredients list, yes, they're gluten-free, but that doesn't mean they're healthy. And very often they're higher in sugar, way lower in fiber, because that's one good thing that wheat has going for it, is that although it's got gluten in, it is the primary source of fiber for many people. So we really don't want to do a straight swap for your normal products for gluten-free products, and instead we want to choose things that are just naturally gluten-free as an alternative. So we're talking about, might be things like rice, buckwheat, focusing on your starchy vegetables instead of your normal carbohydrates. So root vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes, butternut squash, and really focusing your diet around those, and fresh green leafy vegetables, berries. If you eat meat, then meat, or beans and other protein sources. So that's kind of what you want your staple to be, rather than going down the route of choosing all your meals from that free from section in the supermarket. It's fine to have them occasionally, but we don't really want them to be a regular thing, just because they're devoid of any nutritional properties, to be honest. So avoiding the gluten and dairy, really important for reducing inflammation, and it might not be both those things. It can take a little bit of trial and error to work out whether it does need to be both of those things. Other things to think about for reducing inflammation are things like having lots of fresh herbs and spices, things like turmeric, garlic, if you can tolerate it, ginger, all of these things. They're really high in antioxidants, which help to reduce inflammation. Lots of colourful vegetables, lots of fibre, really helpful for reducing inflammation. Now, the other thing, one more thing that we think about when we are thinking about supporting the thyroid function is to start thinking about some deficiencies that could be going on for someone with thyroid issues. Now, I spoke a little bit the other day about iodine. We want to be super careful about supplementing iodine, and I don't recommend taking it unless you know you have an issue. It's often included in a multivitamin just at your daily recommended intake, which is usually 150 micrograms, or international units, I think micrograms. And so 150, or your daily recommended intake, is the maximum that we would recommend unless you know that you've got an iodine deficiency. Things that are much more safe to supplement are things like selenium, vitamin D. because vitamin D supports your immune system. And as I was talking about earlier, your immune system can cause inflammation. So if your immune system isn't happy because it's lacking in vitamin D, and zinc is another one, then there can be inflammation resulting from that. So vitamin D and zinc really, really helpful for your thyroid function and general immune function. And tyrosine, which I again mentioned the other day, is an amino acid which is quite supportive of your thyroid function. So there's some nutrients specific to the thyroid which can be quite helpful to take, which are pretty safe to take. And what I'll do is I'll recommend a supplement in the comments to that includes those nutrients to support your thyroid function. But here is a big caveat. Supplements that support thyroid function are not magic pills. And no supplement is a magic pill, but I think it's particularly true when it comes to the thyroid. They can really, really help. And if you have a thyroid issue that is caused by deficiencies, then it's really going to help. But in most cases, there's multiple factors going on. There's often gut issues, there's often inflammation, and just taking a thyroid support supplement is honestly not going to do anything unless you do the other work as well. We see this all the time. We find that the people that get the really good results are the ones that do the foundational work of making sure their diet's good, working on other factors like stress and sleep, and taking the stuff to support the thyroid as well. Taking the supplement alone, there's no point. It's a waste of money. Supplements do not work if you don't do the groundwork with your diet and lifestyle as well. Okay, rant over. Next, we have got gut support. So gut health, really big topic, and so many different types of things you can do to support your gut function. And difficult to give recommendations without knowing what the gut issue is that's going on. I was talking the other day in my video about how gut issues are so common. And when we don't know what's going on, the best thing to do is to focus on giving your gut variety. So I'm talking about variety of fibers, variety of colors, variety of sources of fiber. So, not just from vegetables, but from beans and nuts and seeds and some grains like buckwheat, for example. So giving your gut variety of color and fiber is one of the best ways to help your gut be resilient and have a lovely diversity of bacteria. Now, one of the things that we explain to our clients is that when there are imbalances where, maybe there's an overgrowth of bacteria or an overgrowth of yeast, then simply having a varied diet isn't going to resolve that issue. It might help, and it's certainly going to help your gut in the long term, but it's probably not going to resolve the issue. And we need to have a much more targeted approach, which, is something that we do when we identify imbalances with our clients. So gut support, variety is key. Things like berries are really, really great for your gut bacteria as well, particularly strawberries and blueberries. Also nuts, particularly walnuts. They've been studied and shown that when you have them every day, they help with improving levels of beneficial bacteria in the gut. You could also think about fermented foods as well. So these might be things like kimchi, kombucha, kefir, potentially homemade yogurt if you're okay with dairy, sauerkraut. So all fermented foods that help to introduce good bacteria into your gut, but they often also include prebiotics, which are the fibers that feed those good bacteria. So again, that all of those things help with building up the good stuff in your gut, but they might not necessarily help with getting rid of the bad guys, which is what we tend to focus on if we find imbalances. Next, we've got sleep. You need to be sleeping well to support your thyroid function. This is not just because when you have an underactive thyroid, your energy levels are low and you feel more tired. It's also because if you're sleep deprived, that's a form of stress, and that any stress is going to be putting a stress on your thyroid. So one of the best things that we can do to support our thyroid is, one, to sleep and make sure that we get 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep where possible. And secondly, to do our best to manage stress and to relieve stress, make sure we have some downtime, some time where we can be creative is a great way to relieve stress. Do things that you enjoy. Easy for me to say this, I know sometimes it's more difficult to actually achieve that, but at the end of the day, it's so important, and it's critical to you getting to your happy weight and balancing those hormones, that you do put a lot of your focus on reducing stress and managing it better. So those are the things that we focus on to help with supporting the thyroid. As I say, there's more that we do because we run tests and we identify what the actual issue is with the thyroid. We go further than this. This is the foundation, but we go further by identifying what it is that's actually going on. So to give you a quick summary, we want to reduce inflammation, we want to correct deficiencies, we want to balance the gut and support the diversity of good bacteria, we want to make sure we're sleeping properly, good 8 hours in bed every night, and we need to make sure that we are supporting our bodies through stress. I did a video the other day all about supporting your body through stress and how, it's not always easy to actually reduce stress, and actually there's things that we can do to support our body through stress, which involves things like making sure you give your body the nutrients that you burn through very quickly when you are stressed. So I'll make sure I link to that video below, as I'm sure that'll be helpful. It definitely links in with this whole thyroid topic as well. So let me know, has this been helpful? Are you struggling with thyroid issues? I want to know all about what's going on for you. And if you want to have a little chat, if you want to talk more about what it is you're struggling with, then make sure you send me a DM. Just click on my name, send me a message, and I will have a chat with you and see if we can work out what's going on and what it is you need to start seeing better results. Thanks so much for watching today. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you give it a like, and I will be back soon with another juicy topic to talk through. Bye.